It's been an exciting day here in Switzerland, Biel, following the action from the 57th International Biel Chess Festival. The classical tournament of the triathlon, both the Masters and Challengers, now is officially over because in round 5 we saw quite a lot of action before the final leg, the Blitz tournament, to determine who is going to enter the final stage of the triathlon to take down this year's event. We have selected the game of the round, which is Lim Le, the reigning champion of the past two editions, versus Ike Martirosyan. Oh, what a battle it was. So it's not going to feature a lot of exciting moves, but there's something really special about this game. So it started to be a rather quiet game. The players transport the position to one of the most hotly contested topics here in Biel, the Caspet structure. 97, 92, the modern way to play this particular setup. Short castle, rook e8, a4, a brand new idea here, stopping black's typical counterplay with b5, a5. Black responded with h6, and after bishop h4 decided to trade off some pieces with knight e4. Now here, after a couple of trades, we got to the following position. White was planning to start a queenside attack with something like a5 and knight a4, maybe even b4 and b5, while black felt that he has to organize something at the king side. This is exactly what happened. After a5, knight f6, queen c2, both players were carrying out their plans. After bishop d7, h3, rook d8, rook d1 and bishop c8. One of the turning moments of the game was this quiet move rook d2, since white was very clearly preparing to play d5 and organize a counter-strike in the center. Martirosyan felt that he has to trade the queens with queen b4, hitting the weak pawn on a5, and after queen a4 the queens were off the board. Now the Vietnamese grandmaster continued to press for most of the game. He had a small advantage, but nothing really significant. And the critical moment arose here when once again the game turned to a different structure. Both opponents captured a couple of pawns. After bishop takes on h3, now the knight on e4 is under attack. White played knight c5, bishop c8 and e4, and it seems that white is slightly better, but black is solid enough to hold on and try to save the game. After f5, d5, white's threat was to play d6, d7, establish a strong pass pawn. Rook d6 was very precise defense, and from here the Armenian grandmaster was very precise with his next moves. He played g5, king g7, and here after d takes on c6, Lim Le felt he has to once again to change the position to attempt to get something real out of this position. Rook c6, rook d5, hitting these pawns here. And finally, after f takes on e4, rook g5, king f6, f4, white still retained a small pressure because the pawn on e4 was becoming rather weak. The Armenian grandmaster decided to push it forward, followed by rook d8, push it even further. Now, after very careful checks, white was sailing to the position where the pawn on d2 is lost, but for black, it still has a lot of resources to save the game. So here, Martirosyan traded a couple of pawns after b6, king takes on e2, b takes on a5, rook g5, king h6, and b takes on a5. Rook g6 was a great move, trading the rook so that black can enter this into possibly drawn endgame. And now the critical moment arose here. So the black king was racing to get to the pawn on a5, and it was up to Lim Le to organize something serious with this f-pawn. However, the problem is the weak pawn on g2 that can always be targeted by the bishop on c8. So this was the highest level chess. After king d4, king d6, knight e4 was the best attempt for the Vietnamese grandmaster. And after king c6, white cannot play king e5 because black would trade this pawn with h3, bishop takes on h3, and after f5, give up the bishop and simply collect the pawn on a5 with an easy draw. And this was the reason why the Vietnamese grandmaster decided to play first knight g5, stopping h3 from happening. So here the Armenian grandmaster spent quite a bit of time before deciding to play king b5, and now the critical moment. After king e5, bishop g4 was a very big mistake. Apparently black still had the position within the drawing range. Had he played king a5, f5, bishop f5 here, king b4. Now you see black has a pass pawn here at a file, so white has to race to try to catch it back. King e4 and the very important king c3, shouldering the white king, and there's nothing that white can do. White is not in time to capture the pawn on h4, and even if he races back with the knight, black always keeps the position level. Here a3 would be a big mistake because of the fork, and the white king marches forward to the h pawn. However, simple king c4, knight c2, king c3, black would have had held the fortress. It didn't happen because Matryoshyan felt that this endgame is losing, and instead he played bishop g4, which was a big mistake. So here, after the very precise f5, king f5, and f6, Matryoshyan's idea was that he now has access to bishop h5. However, this idea was flawed. Here Lim Le had plenty of time to figure out what's the follow-up, and he chose the wrong continuation. So he played knight f3, which was a mistake that cost him the potential victory. Apparently, the victory was very close. He should have played f7, threatening to promote the pawn to the queen, and now, with the very precise king d4, now it's white who is shouldering the black king to access the c3 square, and if black pushes forward the a pawn after knight e3, no matter where the black king goes, the knight takes care of the passed pawn. After king b5, there's king c3, and this knight is racing towards the pawn on h4, easily winning the game, and after king b3, there's simply knight c5, knight f4, and white simply will collect the pawn on h4 and win any endgame. It didn't happen, and Lim Le, unfortunately for him, saw a different way, as he thought that might win the game. So here, after f5, f6, he decided to play knight f3, and his idea was that he's going to play knight h4 and play g4, g5, g6, and try to capture the victory this way. What happened is that after king b4, knight h4, a5, g4, here the Armenian grandmaster found a study-like defense to save the game. He played bishop f7, the only move. And now Lim Le, for some reason, stopped. He suddenly realized that even though if he promotes first, this is not a victory. The point is, after g5, g6, takes it, a3, f7, a2, white promotes with a check. The black king is so far away from the b2 square, and yet white cannot win the game. Why is this? Because of the unfortunate placement of the white king. If white had access to the long diagonal, any move on the h8, g7, and f6 squares would win the game, because black would be not in time to put the king on b2. To make things worse, now the black king makes on b2, and this knight for white on g6 makes no influence on the game, because one of the critical ideas for black to save the game is to know the stalemate trick with king a1. So of course here the Vietnamese grandmaster tried a couple of times to get the knight closer, to try to win this game, but this is a theoretical draw. So after several attempts, the game was finished with a logical outcome. Big miss for Lim Le, and a miraculous escape for the Armenian grandmaster. So what does it mean for the current overall rankings here in both Masters and Challengers? These are the results of the fifth round. In the classical portion, you can see Prague scored an important victory over Sam Shankland in a very crazy game. Mishra, Keimer, Lim Le against Matryoshyan finished in draws. In Challengers, we saw two decisive results for Donchenko and Biel, giving a chance for both grandmasters to try to catch the leaders, Vaishali and Salem Saleh, where the Indian superstar Vaishali messed up on move 40 by missing a potential victory that might have given her the lead in the overall rankings. So in the meantime, after round 5, this is the current situation in both Masters and Challengers. Masters is spearheaded by the two-time champion Lim Le with 17.5 points, with hot pursuit of Mishra, Matryoshyan, and Keimer. Also Prague potentially could catch up the leaders. In the Challengers tournament, we have Salem Saleh leading the tournament with 21 points. A miraculous escape against Vaishali, who is right now in the second place. But Donchenko and Biel back to the important victories, trying to catch up with the leaders. The action will continue tomorrow with the Blitz game, when both tournaments will play double round-robin Blitz tournament of 10 rounds, which might have massive implications who is going to qualify for top 4 in both Masters and Challengers. Make sure to tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time to see it live.